My concern would be, where will all this money come from to help pay, to provide money for the loans and scholarships and grants for these kids?
Well, I think, look, again, I tried to show here how we can keep costs down to a minimum here by savings that can be made. We've spent some time developing this plan. It wasn't something we drafted in the last couple of hours. Talking to a lot of people who bring a great deal of knowledge to this and the assumptions of what we could achieve, and even assuming that everybody decided to step up and take advantage of what we're talking in tuition-free community colleges here. And look, again, I make the point to here, while the relative dollars seem small by comparison, the GI Bill was not an inexpensive bill in its day. And there were those who were resistant to the idea. But what had the amount of revenues paid back because of the incomes that were achieved by people who otherwise would not have been able to get a higher education coming off World War II has paid back a dividend to this country vastly in excess of the cost of the program. Now, it doesn't come back immediately. But we've been, I think, Thomas Jefferson said years ago, obviously, at the beginning of the 19th century, any nation that expects to be ignorant and free expects what never was and never possibly can be. Nice little poetic line. And if that were true at the beginning of the 19th century, as we're now the first decade of the 21st century, knowing that a child in Concord High School or a student here at New Hampshire Community Technical College is not just competing with a child in Connecticut or Vermont or Maine. They're going to be growing up and competing with people in Beijing and Sydney and Johannesburg and Moscow and London. It's a different world we've entered into here. And so we cannot afford not to do this. And when people say it's costly to do it, the cost of not doing it vastly exceeds the cost of doing it. And the sooner we recognize this, if we leave the American child educational opportunities behind for a decade, I think this century will suffer terribly for America. I believe that as much as anything else. So this has to be at the top of anybody's list, in my view, of priorities to get this right. Every other issue we depend upon depends upon making sure that everyone who has the appetite, the desire, the determination to go on ought to be able to do so. And the barrier of cost ought not to be so overwhelming that people are dissuaded from making those choices. We lose too many people. I don't know how many of that 170,000 could make a huge difference, but I got to believe there are an awful lot of them there who could make a contribution. You, Brian, I commend you immensely for making the decision to get back to school. I'm impressed with John Lynch, deciding to raise from 16 to 18 here. People stay in school here. It's a tough step, but a right step to take, and I admire him for doing it. And we'll be talking tomorrow about K through 12, but I have a lot of interest as well in that area. I had a great experience at Concord High School, by the way. You have the best program up there for people. We have the whole, was it juniors and seniors, or was it the whole school?
Any teacher could bring his or her class.
Yeah.
Yeah, the students really enjoyed having it.
I had a great experience up there. I was back this winter, last winter.